Welcome back to Old Guy REI. We're continuing our series on Meeting the Investor, which is a series we thought we'd try to introduce some of the investors in our groups that have inspired me, for one, and I know a lot of other people in the group. So today, Michelle Meyer is with me, and she's got she's got a really interesting story, and been she's willing to share it with us. So thank you, Michelle. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Frank. I'm really excited to be here with you.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And you have inspired me.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so
Good.
much. Um, so we we've been friends for a while now. I don't probably at least a couple of years. And
Yes.
we were fortunate enough to meet in Vegas the first time Zuber had his event, and that was really awesome. My wife came back with some new friends, so that's pretty tough to do. She's a tough cookie to crack it, but you and a lot of the other people in the group, she just came back just really excited. So thank you all for that. Um, so if you could just give us a quick overview of where you're at and how long have you been investing and maybe what do you invest in?
So I am in the Pacific Northwest in near Seattle. I live about 17 miles north of Seattle. My properties currently are about I want to say about 50 miles away from me south. So somewhere about 35 miles south of Seattle.
Okay.
And I own duplexes is what I have right now.
And do you have, I know we were able to catch up with you when I went to Washington and you were just closing on two of the duplexes. Is that all you have?
I have one other one, and I can go into the details of all because that's not how it started.
Mhm.
That's what I'm doing now that I've learned a little bit. Not, I don't consider myself done learning. I'll probably learn until I die, but I'm doing much better now this time around.
Yeah, great. I know we've, in some of our past conversations, you mentioned that you got your start back in 2006. If you want to start from there and let us know
Yeah.
what happened.
Yeah, so I think most of us are familiar with what happened in that around that time. I purchased my first home to live in back in '99. And I'll mention this because our friend Dion has pointed it out, and I never saw it that way. Um, I bought this house with an FHA loan to occupy it. It was a fixer-upper, and I used basically 3.5% down, plus closing costs. And the closing costs were rolled into the loan, and they basically, I think it was like $7,000 that I came to the table with, and they gave me back money to pay my credit cards. Um, because basically they said if you owe this, money to the credit cards, you can't afford the payment. Um, and it's the best thing I've ever done. Basically out of pocket about $5,000 because they gave me back 2,000 to pay back these credit cards. And it needed work. I spent many years fixing it. And fast forward to 2006, I was feeling like a contractor now. I could install flooring. I could, there was a bunch of stuff I was doing, and I was doing it, just going on the internet, searching whatever I could. And I had friends that maybe knew how to do this and how to do that, and they would come and help, and or maybe I would pay them a little bit. So I was feeling all empowered to keep going. So some friends in 2006 were saying, "Hey, people are." Um, refinancing their house and moving on to buying another one with the money they pull out of the house. And so there I go, finance my house that I lived in by 7 years, 100% back then. Somehow, um, the person that was helping me to get the loans um, got me an 80% and a 20%. Both they adjusted loans were not, they were not fixed rate loans, and they were interest only on top of that. And that was the only way that I could afford that. And I don't even think I could afford it. Thinking back to that time, it was just my wishful thinking and my desire of doing something in real estate or doing something that would get me out of, don't consider myself poor. I don't feel like I was ever poor. Thanks to, you know, God and everything, that been very lucky. But I just wanted something to look forward to, something so that I could help my family and have a easier life. And 100%, 100% finance, interest only, that's what they helped me to get. And I pulled out a bunch of equity, you know, um, and I felt like I'm on top of the world. I found this house near Microsoft, and just a little 1950s Rambler, 3 bedroom, 2 bath, with a converted garage. So technically, it basically was a four room, but they had no garage. Also a fixer upper, much better condition than this one was, but it needed work anyway. So I used the money, and just to give you what my idea was, because that's what everyone was doing, was to also buy it about 5% down and keep all the rest of the money for fixes. And after whatever amount of time, um, once it was fixed and I could maybe rent it, I could move on to the next property with the money that I had pulled from my first house. But I also moved because back then I had a 9-year-old and I was a single mom. And so I wanted my son in a better school. And being that Microsoft was in that neighborhood, the schools there were much better. So I moved, and again, not really thinking everything clearly. I was just kind of tunnel vision to what I needed to do. Um, I wasn't going to be able to move because my son was getting into middle school. And if I wanted him in that school district, I would have had to buy a house in that same neighborhood, and I couldn't afford it. Come closing day, and instead of the 5% down or 3.5% down, they see that I have this money that was deposited from my refinance, and they saved my financial future. They basically said, we are not going to allow you to refi or finance your home 95%. You're going to have to put down 20% and pay for closing costs. So, um, initially I was like, oh, darn, I'm not going to have a bunch of money in the bank. But I still was going to have a lot of money in the bank, and I didn't see it that way again. But I was going to have a house that already had equity that I had put money in. Um, and I still had money left to, do the fixes. And while I fixed it, I wasn't going to have. So another thing that I haven't mentioned is I house hack by the room before I knew the word house hack. In my first house, it was usually my brothers, my cousins, my friends that came to visit for 6 months, just anyone that needed a room. They come and stay here, and I charge them rent. I would give them a break. If they were visiting, I would say, you can stay for like a month, but then after a month, you're gonna have to pay rent. So, so I've always been a slumlord since I bought this house in 99. So my hope was, I leave this house rented by the room, cover cost of the mortgage, lack of knowledge, right? Lack of the education, that's not the way you do it. Um, and then I would move to the other house, fix it, and also rent by the room. And there was 4 rooms. So I could, you know, rent at least one because my son was in one, I was in the other, and maybe there was an office because it was a small house. And so I would rent one room and help out with the mortgage. And eventually that's what I did. Um, 2 years later, house prices went to the toilet. The idea of refinancing out of those interest-only loans, which my 80% loan in the new house was also an interest-only loan. Um, the bank, basically the loan broker, the help was like, hey, no problem. You in 2 or 3 years, houses will increase in price, interest rates will go down, and you'll be making more money because you'll get raises every year. And I don't even remember how many more things were gonna go a certain, you know, rainbow way. Um, but everything will be perfect and you'll refinance into fixed rate loans. Um, but houses went down. What I think I had, it was like a 25%, maybe not quite 25%, but somewhere like 15 and 20% um, reduction in price on the house that I was living in. So now almost all my down payment was gone. Not gone because the house is still there. I was still living there, but the hope to refinance was not there. Um, the also lending became a little difficult, right? So now you had to be able to afford these loans, and I couldn't. So when I called the bank and I said, "Hey, I don't want to lose my houses, because I live in one, and in the other one live my brothers, my family lives there. And I want to lose them." And they were like, "Well, you're not going to be able to refinance." And I made that call when when I could start to see in Zillow, hey, your house price, value is this much. And I was like, oh my God, I can't do this. Um, so to add to insult to injury, um, my brother loses his job. And we went into a recession, so a lot of people were losing their jobs. And my brother basically said he was basically paying half of the mortgage in this house. So he basically said, I can't help anymore. Unemployment that only goes so many months, and he was out. He basically said, I'm moving out of state. I'm gonna go find somewhere else to live. And I basically had to tell the bank, I can't make payments. I have to choose what I do. Um, by then, I think this is like 2013 by now, right? Or 11. No, I'm sorry. It was like 2010, 2011. Um, I had completely remodeled the other house. It was comfortable, it was nice, and I could rent it. So basically told the bank, I am renting this house and I am going to move back to my house. And they had allowed me to do a short sale, and it was like end of November. And the person that was going to buy the house on the short sale backed out, and the bank said by then, um, we're going to go from this amount and basically sell your house for half of what they were trying to sell it for, or they had allowed me to sell it for. And that was already about $100,000 less than I owed. And so now I was gonna owe a lot. Thankfully, there was a program that would allow it to be written off, and so I wouldn't have to pay taxes on if I did end up selling. But there was no certainty that the program was going to be renewed in the new year. So I asked the bank, hey, since I'm back living in this house, is there any way that I can save it? Because literally they were selling it for less than what I bought it initially. And I said, my circumstances have changed, and obviously I do make a little more money now. My credit is garbage. So I can't really qualify, but is there anything that I can do? And they allowed me to do a modification. So I basically had to present to them. They lower my interest from that interest only at 7.5 to about 5.25. And so the loan, the mortgage payment was doable for me. And I proved to them that I could afford it. And I was able to save the house. Um, and the road from there has been a little bumpy because, obviously your credit suffers, and we were in a recession for a while. And so you don't get a lot of raises when when you're in a recession. You're just thankful that you have a job. And it took me a while to recover. Um, so I'll stop here so that if you have any questions or if you want me to continue, let me know.
Yeah, no, that was all great. And I just while I was listening, just thinking how many people would have given up, right? What we hear people talk about our why. What is the reason that you're trying so hard to make real estate work for you? Um, and I guess what is your goal? Are you along the way, did you realize it might be a way for you to retire early or just be able to help in retirement?
Right. Yeah, I wasn't thinking about retiring early at that point. Not up to 2013, 14. My why, I was a single mom, and my son was 9 when I bought the second house, right? So I wanted him in a better school district. And I wanted to be able to afford his college. I knew I wasn't going to make much more than what I made at the moment, not in my W-2. I'm more concerned about stability when it comes to my W-2 than I am on making a ton of money. Um, I am an immigrant from Colombia. I came when I was 18 years old, and I'm the oldest of three. And so I almost have three kids or three children, um, because my brother, one of them was 17 and the other one was 12, and we had lost our parents. So we literally came to the country with a suitcase where everything we owned was in there, the three of us. Um, can't complain, honestly, can't complain about how that happened or what, none of that. It's been a wonderful journey, but that was my why. Like, I wanted to be there for them and for myself and my son, if there was any problems, because there was nothing that we could go back to back home. So, over the years, I worried a lot about that. So, it was almost like rebuilding what we had, a family, a home. It was so important for us to have a home. And so it's really hard to hear when the bank wanted to sell this house for less than I bought it. I was like, I'm gonna cry because I felt like this was home. That, my first house where we have all lived here, you know. My brothers have left when they had, girlfriends and wives and everything. But if anything happens, they come back, And so I, I wanted that, So that was my why.
That's a really special one. I think um, how long have you been doing the kind of work that you do? Have you been in it for like
Yeah,
25 years or so?
I've been at my job for 22 years.
Okay.
And initially, I went to school. I just did a certificate for computer science, specifically for technical support. Being that we're Microsoft world, and it was, what most people would want. at that point, but it was just a certificate, and it was in technical support, and I was learning English.
Mhm.
So it took me a while to get up to a meaningful salary. And then I joined this company as a basically, hey, I'm gonna be help desk. And that's another that's another story. Because it basically turned into you're gonna run the department, of a small company. And over the years it grew, so I no longer was running the company, and I learned other things. So literally I'm not at all, I mean, I shouldn't say I'm not at all involved in technology. I'm still involved in technology, but I work for a cargo transportation company. And so I'm in charge of almost the carrier relationship when it comes to integrating in automating processes in connection between us and the carriers. So
Okay.
it's still technology, but it's more relating to the operations of the company. So, and I've been there for 22 years. So it's almost like it's another home. Yeah.
Yeah, and in some of our earlier conversations, you've mentioned you still have family in Colombia, right? And I know you've shared with us, a few of us, that your portfolio is doing fairly well these days, and but you're still struggling with the thought of retirement.
Yeah. So back when in 2002, in 2022, I'm sorry, um I had saved this house. I had fixed my credit, thank God. My DTI was still kind of out of whack. Um for obvious reasons. I owed two houses, really, really high, but I had rental income. But back to no education, my rental income didn't cover. It was covering my mortgage, but that was it.
Mhm.
So, I didn't know that you had to put away money for maintenance and repairs, and then you had to put money for vacancy. I just was worried about the mortgage getting paid.
Yeah.
So, 2022, my tenants say a person can buy, and they are wanting to buy your house. And so I call the person, you know, not even thinking about it. I knew prices had gone up, and I would look at my net worth because I had so much equity, and I was like, wow, look at me. Um, but I still didn't, my pocket still didn't feel like the net worth that I could see. And so I called the guy and I almost fell. He was offering three times what I had bought the house for. And I couldn't believe it. It was crazy. And the things I could do with that. So I start to Google, you know, what to do with real estate, or, real estate investing in Seattle and all this stuff. And all this retire early, fire movement, all this stuff started to come up. And I was like, wait, what? I mean, I had joked about retiring early because my thought was one day I'm going to pay this house off, and or it's going to be the mortgage is going to be low enough that my roommates, because I'm still house hacking by the room, my roommates are going to cover my mortgage, and then I'm going to move to Colombia. And I'm not going to, technically work. I want to I'll tell you what I want to do later, but so but when I started Googling all this stuff, I was like, wait, I can retire early. And wait, this guy's going to give me how much money? Okay, well now what do I do with this money? Like, I mean, obviously it's real estate. And I found that I was gonna have to pay, I don't know, 30-40% on the gain on the sale. And I was like, the IRS is gonna keep almost half of my money? What? So I'm studying, Googling, trying to find out what am I gonna do. And out comes Dion McNeely on an interview with Bigger Pockets. And he has a Facebook group, and I joined the Facebook group because obviously he's local. And the day I joined that Facebook group, he was having a live, the Tuesdays lives that he has at 4 p.m. Pacific time. And he says, it's going to be a short live because I am going to a meetup in Tacoma. And I'm like, oh man, see, the day I joined the call, you know, he's only going to talk for an hour. But then I'm like, wait, there's a meetup in Tacoma. What? I can meet him in person. So I basically put that live on my phone and got ready and started driving to Tacoma. So it took me 2 hours. Traffic is it's crazy around here. And so he went for an hour on the live, and I got there an hour after I think I got there about an hour after the meetup started. And everybody was talking about the fire movement and retiring with rentals. By then, because I had Googled quite a few weeks, I had realized that, I could retire early. I could do this. And meeting him and obviously has led me to meet all of you guys and learning so much. And it just basically changed my life. Um, I ended up not selling the house that year. It was under contract for, I don't know, 6 months, and the market changed, and so the buyer backed out. And so I fixed it. I rented it for another year, and I had re talk about refinance. He doesn't like the refinance part, but that's all I knew how to do, right? So I had started a refinance. By the time I went to this meetup, I had started a refinance of my house to pull as much as I could and still be able to make the payment. That's another, that's a thing that changed, over the years I learned. Fixed rate and the payment has to make sense for my pocket and my, having roommates. So I refinanced the pool as much as I could and still be able to make the payment. And I had this money coming ready for when I sold the house because I had found that you can do a 1031 exchange, where basically you buy one or more properties that will be rentals, and they have to be worth what you sold the house for or more. So I basically wanted to have as little as possible of debt. And that's what because I had PTSD from 2006. So it was like, I have the debt here. I knew the debt and the rentals would be higher, the interest rate. So I wanted to basically have as little debt as possible on the rentals and have them basically cash flow because I had no idea what cash flow was really. So, or the cash on cash return or any of those terms. So I went there and told my story, and he was like, well, you're not doing it right. You want to put down as much as you can, 25%, because they're going to be, which is the difference with me than someone starting new, right? Someone starting new, we can address that, but because I already had a rental and because I had all this money, I wasn't going to leverage myself so much because I already had learned from prior experience. So I was going to have to put down 25%. um, when he said, you don't want to, you want debt. You just don't want to over leverage your debt. So you're going to find good deals, as we know from all his um, classes. You're going to have good deals at cash flow, and put down at least a 25% and get as much cash flow and as the best cash on cash return that you can. Washington is a very expensive state. Um, And so at 25% down, it's pretty high. So where I was going to buy maybe two properties, and that's another thing. I was going to buy two single family homes, right? That's all I could afford, really, what I was thinking. But instead, meeting him, it's like I'm going to go for a small multifamily, 2 to 4 units, or a house with an ADU. Um, and So what I did is I took that money because the house sale fell through. I took the money that I had pulled out instead of leaving it in the bank. I actually found a really good deal for a duplex. It had been listed for $520,000, and I was able to buy it for 450. And so it had been on the market for a while, and so they were able to lower the price that much. And since I was putting down, and in fact, the bank kind of saw the writing on the wall. And they said, because of your DTI being so high, since my rents were only covering the cost of mortgage, my DTI was still showing high. And so basically they said you have to put down 30%. You can't do 25, you have to put down 30%. Um, and so I bought my first duplex in August of 2022 and waited almost a year, or close to a year, like 9 months, 9 to 10 months. The house finally sold, and that's when I did the 1031 exchange. And when you guys were here, or you were here, and we had already met in Vegas, right? And so I bought the another two duplexes, and you and Dion came out to see them. So
Yeah, so you turned the single family home into two duplexes,
yes.
and you did I you did put quite a bit down, like you said, to help with the cash flow. And uh, it it sounds like we're going to have to do a mini series because you've done so many things. You did the 1031, and you took us on that journey with you, right? We talk each week, and you were going through that process, and that helped us a lot. Even though we're not ready to do things like that yet, but just going through the experience with you helps us be a little bit more prepared if that comes up for us too. Um, we don't have to get too into detail, but you also do have done a little bit of private money lending.
Yes. You know, basically because I had that money that I pulled from my house, and I've been I'm a saver. I've been saving a lot. And so the opportunity came within the Tacoma Phi group, and having met them for, in person for a while, haven't shared with them a lot of our experiences, spending time in Vegas, a level of comfort, has been developed. And so I was able to lend some money to Millennium Mike, and he's the king of Gary, another one of our mentors. And he basically bought a duplex and that he was remodeling. So I lent him $50,000, and that's basically what he was gonna used to pay and remodel the duplex. And I got a note, it's registered in the county and all that. And every month I get interest only payments. And that is a loan for 5 years with the hope that he would be able to refinance. So sort of like what he calls it, the slow burn burr.
Mhm.
And so in 5 years or within that 5 years, if interest rates go low enough that he thinks that it'll make sense to refinance, then he will refinance and either give me the choice to roll over the money into a next property or cash me out and give me the $50,000 back. But if the interests are still not favorable, we could extend, 1 year at a time until he's able to refinance. It's important to note that I didn't need that money to live. I didn't need the money to put into another property. I mean, I could probably have used it to put it to another property, but I think it saved me from seeing some properties and going, "Oh, this is gonna work. I know it's gonna work, and I have the money, so why not?" So I think it's helped me, slow down a little bit because, as you could tell, I kind of go like a wild horse,
Hmm.
and so it's helped, and it's given me, an eye into other things to do in related to real estate.
Yeah, I think that you answered my next question with that comment about because I was wondering if once you did the private money deal, if you had any regrets, like if deals did pop up and you said, "Oh, I could have used that money to buy this," but I think, like you said, it worked in your favor because you know, we always talk about, even I purchased things I maybe I shouldn't have. I should have let things that we already had stabilize for a while. And because, in our story that we've been sharing, we had a lot of repairs last year and it really ate up all of our reserves. And so we were struggling for a bit as well. If I had just maybe held back on that one last purchase, things would have been a lot better. So rushing into things is definitely not always the best course to take. Um,
Yeah.
Earlier, we were talking about Colombia. So you have family there. Right now, you self-manage your properties, right?
Yes, I do. Yeah, they're an hour and 10 minutes with no traffic and 2 hours with traffic. But yeah.
And do you think the systems that you have in place, will that allow you to manage them remotely if you do go to Colombia for a while?
Yes. So basically I have people that I know that are local to the properties, that if the tenant has an emergency, something, the other day, it was a hot water heater that went out, and it was like it wasn't out all the way, so we were doing some troubleshooting remotely,
Mhm.
and it became where I just had to have someone go, and he's able to, my friend is able to go. He's a contractor. And so, yes, I have people that I can rely on, that, and all the three duplexes are within about 5 mile radius, and he's also in that area, and he's not the only one that I could call. Obviously, it costs a lot more money, but yeah, I can definitely manage it remote.
Okay. And I know you and your husband have shared that you do projects on the properties, when you have a vacancy or something like that. How has he been on board with the whole real estate investing thing, or
So he's not as experienced, and so it, it's a lot more difficult for him. We're kind of like the tables are kind of turned. He's more of like everything he wants to buy is cash, like he has good credit, but he doesn't want to buy something unless he has all the money. And so that has been a little bit difficult for him to, and even and for my family, like my extended family, my aunts and stuff, they're like, why do you want to have all that debt?
hmm,
And I'm like, there's a reason. That's the way that it works, and I can't explain it to them, in a way that they can understand it. But um he does get involved, obviously not in the money part because he's a little wary of that. But, you know, if we need we've built decks, we've built, uh, uh a cover for the decks, and on two of the duplexes we've done that too. And we painted, he painted the outside, and he goes and he does most of the stuff himself. But then I go in the weekends and, paint the trim for 2 hours. I paint one window.
you refinished a bathtub, I heard.
Yes, I've refinished two bathtubs by
What did
now.
you?
Yeah, yeah. Um, and Yeah, I'm not, yeah, I joke that I take 2 hours doing one window frame, but I do a lot of it, obviously I don't want to leave him all by himself to do everything. But yeah, he's very supportive now of all my craziness. So he works in the properties.
Yeah. After knowing you for this amount of time that we have and all the things that I see you doing with your investing, with the changes you made in the home that you're living in now, you've shared those with us. It seems, I don't know, kind of unbelievable that you didn't have all this experience in the beginning. Do you do you do you reflect, I think like I do, a few years back and wonder, like I always wonder, why did I do something a certain way? Now that I know the correct way to do it, what was I thinking back then? Or because we've talked too before that the first time we tried investing in real estate, Cynthia and I, YouTube wasn't a thing, uh, we mentioned Zuber way back when he was doing blogs for Bigger Pockets. And so I'm not a big reader. I think that wouldn't have done me any good. But are you ever surprised at how far you've come?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, back when I bought this house, um, the exterior doors were hollow doors.
Uh,
And I got a puppy. And we left him, there was two exterior doors and a sliding door. And so one of them was in the laundry. And we left him there to go to work. And he tore the door, like literally like
oh,
started chewing on the door, made a hole and got out because it was a hollow door.
uh,
And so here I come, it's like, I need a new door. And I didn't know any contractors. And that door needed to be fixed because otherwise we're gonna have to sleep in the with no door or that hole in the door. And so there I go. Lowe's is about a mile, thankfully. And I don't even know where I got the information, Frank. I'm like, this is like early 2000.
uh,
And I went in and I would go to Lowe's basically and the person that was helping people find things, I'd be like, so if you were installing this, how would you do it? Like, what do you do? It's like, and they would explain this crazy, barely spoken. No, I did speak English, but I had a really thick accent still. I had only been in the country for I don't know, 7 years. And so, I mean, it spoke English, but I had a really thick accent. So they were like, probably felt sorry for me. I don't know. But they were super helpful. And so I had a roommate that came with me and he didn't speak English. And so we both of us brought that door in my little Subaru. I don't know how I fit it in there. I probably put some boards on the top of it with a
uh,
blanket and tied it. And it's only a mile, so and it was probably dark by then. And brought the door and installed the door. And that door is still there. So um 25 years later. So I don't know how I did it, but it was necessity, right? I don't know how much someone would charge. I mean, the hot water heater that I just replaced was 2,500, with labor and parts, And so I didn't have $2,500 to spend in one. No, I would have put it in a credit card and my credit card would have continued to um, you know, accrue,
yeah,
which is another thing that we do right in our movement is we try not to have bad debt, only good debt. So I do follow that to the T. So anyway,
yeah,
so yeah, I am amazed to the things that I have done uh construction wise. Thankfully now, times have changed and now I do have $2,500 to pay cash for a water heater and I thank God every day that I do now. So
Yeah, that's a great spot to be in. I, I thought because again, when we tried the first time and I didn't know anything. They just thought, like you said, place a tenant, cover the mortgage, and that's all you got to do. And, that lasted about a year. We had the same kind of loans you did. They were all adjustable. And as soon as they adjusted, we were underwater. And that didn't include anything, like you said, for maintenance and vacancy and all those things. And I was just thinking as you were speaking that I thought the second time around, the second time around would be a lot easier, but as you've seen probably in some of the videos I've done, we've still had tons of challenges. And that's why I ended up thinking it might be a good thing to start recording this stuff because it could help somebody else. And it seems like it has. One thing I keep going back to is a lot of you women investors in the group are like just super intelligent, and we're lucky to be to be able to learn from you guys. And I was talking to, I think it was Lindsay, and because I think more women investors think things through before they make a move, and us guys are just like, hey, cash flows there, cash on cash returns there. What could go wrong? And and Cynthia has pulled me back a few times from making even more mistakes. So I'm always impressed with you ladies, and how you do things and how successful you are. Um, but like I said, I mean, there's a lot more to your story, and I appreciate you coming on because it's not easy to be on screen and things like that. Some people are uncomfortable with it, but I appreciate you sticking it out with me, and I hope you'll come back.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's a lot more to tell. So yeah, happy to come back if you have me.
Okay, yeah, for sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Frank.